There we go.
All right. I guess I can start with the opening prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank thee for this day. We thank thee for being gathered together and to talk about this case that we have read and analyzed. We ask thee that we may feel the Spirit and we may all learn from each other's opinions about this case and this venture capitalist firm. And we love thee very much. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Madison, do you have like a thought maybe, or do you want me to figure one?
I can find one.
That's all I would do.
Okay, real quick. Let me pull up a quote. And you know what? We're just going to make one out of this, whatever quote comes up. Okay. Okay. This quote is Thomas S. Monson. It says, "Hope is putting faith to work when doubting would be easier." I think that this is a great quote that we should all try to remember on a daily basis, because we're faced with a lot of trials in this world and with a lot of things, or people that may tell us that what we believe in isn't true. And that's when we need to really put our faith first and understand that faith is more important than the doubts that we may have in this life. So if we're putting faith first in our life, then it will overcome any doubts that we may have.
I love
Good
that.
quote.
Yeah, thank you. Google is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hooray!
All right. I can start question 3 then. So far we have learned to evaluate business models of startups. Today we will examine the business model decision of a startup in a mature industry. As a group, begin by discussing the following questions. So we'll read the first one. Was the VC industry attractive to a16z to enter in 2009? What was the competition like at that time? So if you guys know, around 2009 was the recession, so it wasn't really a good time for VC companies. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and also, oh, sorry, the case had mentioned that venture capitalism was kind of run by the top firms, and a lot of smaller companies that were trying to get their start at that time were failing because they either didn't have CEOs that knew what they were doing, or it was just a hard time to enter into that market. So I'm going to agree with you and say that no, it wasn't a good time for them to start that company.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was really surprised when it said it launched in 2009, especially in Silicon Valley. I was a little surprised, but and then also, yeah, with high tech, because it seems like, I mean, high tech has really boomed since then, but I would have thought it would kind of slow down. But maybe these guys helped.
Perfect. So the next question was like, what was the typical fate of a new entrance in this industry? Why was this all? So like Madison was saying, I remember reading the quote about 3% of the VC firms, so like the top ones, would generate about 95% of the industry's return. So that just shows like all the small VC firms that were coming in, they weren't really in the top 3%. So that's not good.
I also thought it was interesting that they had such a different take on how VC firms functioned. Like they wanted it way more open and way more networking and things like that. Whereas before it was, like it said, it was like, did it say a morgue or a funeral home? It said it was like normal VC firms were like funeral homes because they were so quiet and scary. And so I thought that was kind of like interesting that they would take that take on it, because that's a real risk, especially during that time frame.
Yeah. And if I was starting a company and I saw that 3% was creating the 95% of the, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm saying now. But if I was a small company starting at that time and I saw that, you know, just these few companies were creating 95% of the revenue, like that is a terrifying thought, because you're thinking, great, if I join the rest of these companies that are only creating 5% of the revenue, like that's not going to lead you anywhere. You're trying to throw yourself into this market that's basically made up of a few companies that are very, very successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like putting yourself in a market that's already full.
Yeah. Scary. Okay. What were the trends in VC fund performance during this time? I guess we kind of talked about that. With all the entrenched incumbents and catch-22s, what silver lining did a16z see? How did they plan to succeed in this difficult environment?
So something that I saw is that they were trying to build like a different model compared to the other VC firms at the time. So something that they did more is they invested more time in each investment that they put money in compared to a typical VC firm. And that's where I saw that they were doing differently from other VC firms.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Why is A16Z specifically targeting first-time technical co-founders?
I think they saw the potential there because, I mean, those brand new startups usually had brand new ideas. Like I think some of the ones that said that it funded were like Pinterest and Instagram. You know,
Facebook.
Those were totally new things at the time that now have taken over the world. So I think they recognize the value in having a new idea with the tech industry.
And also when you invest in a company that's already fairly successful, the growth that they're going to have over time is probably a lot less than if you were to invest in Facebook in the first year. Then 10 years later, the growth is way more than it will be 10 years from now, most likely. So you're more likely to get way more back for your investment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because, I mean, they always say if you invest in something big when it's small, you get so much more of it.
In the long run.
Yeah.
All right. The next question says, what choices do technical founders have for financing that they didn't have a decade before? Well, the big one that they didn't have 10 years ago was Kickstarter. Do you guys know what that is?
Crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So crazy.
So it's a big deal now.
Yeah, like GoFundMe, even though that's not really funding for a business, it's funding for a person or a family. And something like that was definitely not something they could have done before, where you can, in 10 minutes, create a pitch, basically, put it out there for people to then fund you, you know? Whereas before they were having to go to a company or contact them directly. And I have a feeling if you did that today for, you know, something you would do a GoFundMe for, it would probably be very weird to a lot of people.
Yeah, I do think that the ease of funding, like now, is way more, I don't know how to say that, but it's way easier to get funding now, especially with there's so much online choice. And then it's probably not as intimidating in this kind of a situation that they made where it's really open and they have a lot of people in there at once. That's probably a lot less intimidating and easier to like bounce off creativity than having a formal like conference meeting where you have to prove your worth in 10 minutes.
And also less stressful for investors who don't feel this pressure. Someone sitting, you know, across the table from you saying, this is my idea, this is what I want money for. Whereas now it's people that are going online in their own time, looking up things and finding something that they're really passionate about, and then they can invest in it without having that pressure of someone asking you for money directly.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. Where are we at?
Question 4.
Do we just start number 4?
Yeah, Andrew.
Okay. VC firms compete on their ability to source, pick, and win. How does A16Z's business model influence these abilities compared to other VC firms? Is that what we totally just did? Okay.
Yeah.
Think of a source as the ability to get founders to come in the door seeking money. How does the way A16Z treat its founders differently from the way a traditional VC treats them? Well, it was saying in the thing that usually they don't allow founders to be part of like the CEO or president's kinds of things. because they didn't feel like they had the same business sense. They had more of the creativity sense. And this company was putting people in as CEOs.
And
yeah,
also,
so like they yeah, you can go.
You go.
Okay. So they treated them as equals, which is pretty cool. And so they invested their money and to all these, they invested their money to all these like these startup companies, and they just gave them like so much confidence. They're like, when you're ready to go, they just told them to go to start off. And yeah.
Okay, so will this increase, decrease, or have no effect on the number of potential deals A16Z sees compared to the competition? I think it has opportunity to increase because if I start a company, I would want to be the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'd
I
be
agree.
I'd be more inclined to seek financing through them if they're going to let me keep my position.
Yeah. And I like how they talked about that, how when people question them on, like he said that he was in a meeting and someone asked him, when are you going to hire a real CEO? And how that hurt him so much. Then he talked about, you know, all these different companies, Hewlett Packard and Facebook, whose founders were still running the company. And I think that's really what fueled that for him. And I think that is really important. Like you were saying, if someone wanted to invest in if there were two people that wanted to invest in my company and one of them suggested that I get a different CEO and the other suggested I stay, I would definitely go with that person. Just gives you that confidence that you know what you're doing and they have trust in you.
Okay. Will this change if a 16Z begins to fire CEOs because they're not performing well?
I don't know. I feel like that's a whole different question, because if you're a CEO of your own startup and you're passionate about it and you're really doing your best, then you know I think you can find success. But if you're sucking at your job and someone fires you, you can't really argue that. Like if you're not doing what you should be, if you're not making the revenue that you should, then if you get fired, I feel like that's on you rather than on the person or the company that's funding you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. On page, you
Oh,
can
go
go. Yeah, you can go.
No, I'm good. You go. You've got a reference. That's way more important.
On page 5, it talks about like the CEOs. If you guys want to go there really fast.
Yeah.
Page 5, it's like near the end of the type of CEOs that we're looking for. Let's see. It's like the last paragraph, but the paragraph before that. So like the quotes. Did you guys find it? At these franchise Silicon Valley startups with magical CEOs and market capturing ideas became crazy magnets for talent, so their growth becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool that they were looking for people who are passionate about being leaders and dedicated to like being that project for a while, instead of just people who are just trying to get rich fast and then leave. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think so. I think a lot of companies like this, there is a lot of creativity to it. But I think in the high-tech industry, you really have to have a sense of like what to do with your product, especially if you're trying to get venture capital and you realize that it could be worth something. Like you have to have a little bit of business sense. And so I think that is one reason that helps these CEOs do well.
Okay. Put yourself in the shoes of, how do you say his name? Andreessen
Andreessen
and Horowitz?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. You must decide whether or not to seek to double your assets under management. Vote as a group. The decision must be unanimous. Consider the following as you decide. How many portfolio companies can one general partner reasonably support? Are there any economies of scale in the business? And will you have to hire more operating team people? If so, will the partners actually make more money for doubling their assets, or will all the additional profits go to hire more people?
So I think in the case it said that they need 10 companies.
Yeah.
Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's so hard to know what to do, especially when it's like your money on the line, your livelihood on the line for like these guys. I don't know. I do think they should, even though it's going to be a pay cut for them, I think expanding will be better in the long run.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think they definitely will have to hire more operating people if they're doubling your assets, because to double your assets and not expand your company as a whole, that's asking for trouble. Will partners make more money, or will all the additional profits go to hiring more people? That really just depends on how much money you're making from it. So if you hire the right people, then you will be making more money. But if not, then no. I don't know. I'm going to say yes, expand. But I don't know. That's a tough decision.
Yeah, so this is a growing industry, and it's a new face in VC. So I guess I agree with both of you. I think they should just expand and hire more workers and see where it goes.
Yeah. Perfect.
So it talked about in there if they were deciding if they wanted to like grow in industries or like grow geographically. What do you guys think about that?
I had said grow geographically. Industry-wise, I guess it just depends on what industry they are wanting to expand into. Since most of them are probably more educated on the technology side of things, I think, expanding geographically where they're at right now would be a smart decision. Whereas if they were to expand into like different areas of the market, I think they would probably have to end up hiring more people with different backgrounds in education. I don't know. Yeah, different experts. What do you guys think?
I thought it was kind of interesting because in my mind, those two things like go together. Like high tech is Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
That's why they went there. And so it was kind of weird to me, but I kind of thought they should do more industry, because even though they would have to hire experts, I mean, it would, like broaden their portfolio or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it would give them a little more experience and more opportunity in more places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andrea.
Ah, dang it.
Cool. Well, did we miss any questions or?
I think that was it.
Cool.
Do the summary.
Yeah. You want to start, Madison?
Yeah. So overall, I think that they should expand geographically, even though my teammates disagree. I think that they're in a good place right now where if they were to expand geographically, they could keep the same people that they have. They're well educated in that area. Whereas if they were to expand in the market, then they would have to hire different people. But I can see from the other point of view as well. I don't know what else.
Sorry. We also talked about like how this company approached everything a little bit different, and that's probably one reason why they had success. Like they allowed CEOs to stay, and they also had more of like an open environment rather than funeral home environment. And anyway, so that was good discussion.
Yeah, so they just wanted to. So I wrote this pretty quick summary. So the whole case was about they wanted to start a VC firm that was extremely different than what another VC firm would usually do. They created a firm that attracted more people, but it was completely different, but it's very successful. And now they're just trying to see if they should branch out to industry or to another geographical region. And well, me and Andrea agreed they should expand their industry And Madison, unfortunately, believes they should expand geographically.
Madison was wrong, but she said.
We did all agree that they should expand, though. So
that's what we got teamwork.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, good job, team.